Welcome to Inside the Line, Real Stories by Real Cops. You can reach us at insidetheline.org or by email at gmail at realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com. I'm Dave Rattigan alongside Dale Lawrence.
Hello, David.
Retired cop. And today we're going to talk about one of your favorite topics, which is not to be a victim. Don't be a victim, street smarts. And let me tell you what I know about street smarts.
What's that?
I know that if I'm ever in a tight situation, if I'm out at night and I'm walking alone, even if I think I'm very, very safe, I know that it's very important for me to will myself invisible so that the bad guys can't see me as I walk down the street.
If I was a bad guy and there was 100 people walking down the street, I'd pick you out in a heartbeat.
Not at all, because you're going to look at me and you're going to be like, look at the way he's dressed. He doesn't have any money.
That's true.
That's really my defense. But I got to tell you this is actually something that's somewhat important to me. I'm a comedian. I sometimes run a couple of open mics and I run comedy shows.
You got a lot of cash on you. Dave Rattigan has a lot of cash on him.
Oh, yeah, incredible amounts. No. It's all Venmo'd now. Here's what happens all the time with female comedians. You know, we try to use diversity in the show. If there's a female comedian, she's funny, I try and put her on. And I say to her, get one of the other comedians to walk you out to your car.
Can I stop you right there for 1 second?
Yep.
I've seen some of your female comedians. They probably don't need anyone to walk them out.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
I want to see what you're kidding,
girls.
Yeah, I would love for you to get. That was Dale Lawrence, everybody. Dale, D-A-L-E, Lawrence, like the city. Well, as you know, not necessarily about what you look like, but here's the thing. This is truly the thing. And I don't think it's a bad idea for male comedians to go out in pairs.
Absolutely.
Because even though you've got to split up with your car, you're better off. Safety in numbers. And one of the things I say to when my niece started in comedy, I told her that. I said, don't walk to your car alone. And I said, the challenge for a new female comedian, is that she goes to open mics and she's got to figure out like what comic she would actually trust to walk her to her car, which male comedian, which could be, but she doesn't listen to me because nobody ever does.
I hear you. False confidence is never good. Never have false confidence in your ability.
So she walks out, and the guy that follows her out is just a drunk from the bar. He's just trying to hit on her. So it was creepy, but it was fine. There was not a bad result at the end. But that's the sort of thing that you have to deal with if you're outside at night.
Absolutely.
Or you've got to go to your car.
All the creeps come out at night.
Yeah, and I think people become emboldened. When it gets dark.
It's the darkness, it's the alcohol.
I was going to say, if it's after 11, I used to always think after 12. Nothing good happens after 12 o'clock. That's a famous thing in the bar industry. True. I've heard it recently, and people have turned it back. They rolled the time back to 11 o'clock. Nothing good happens after 11.
Well, I'd say if you watch the news, nothing good is happening at any point in this country in the last few months.
I know you might. Who knows? You might want to go out somewhere with a mask on or without a mask on, and you'll run into some crazy with a mask on or without a mask on. But it's by the time you come, and this is one of the things that I've been thinking about the last few years in terms of a topic, is the fact that we, the citizenry, is not protected. We can't rely solely on cops, and you certainly can't rely on justice after the fact.
No, you have to. From a police officer's standpoint, cops always show up after the fact. Very rarely that you intervene in some sort of an assault in progress. Mm-hmm. So you have to rely on yourself. It's you against the world at some point. And if you're not aware of your surroundings, which we'll get into, if you don't have an ability to defend yourself, some training, or just some inbred psychosis that you just snap like a Wolverine, then you better be aware of your environment at all times.
And I'll tell you where police can be very valuable and I don't know if you've ever had people do this, but if I'm in a situation, sometimes I've been in situations, either I'm in a bar or I'm in somewhere and I think there's going to be an issue with somebody, but there's a cop nearby, like a uniform nearby, doing a detail or whatever. My spidey sense is working, but I'm not actually involved in anything yet. If does that make sense?
Yep.
I'll stop and I'll talk to the cop and I'll just make conversation with him. I might say, I just want to talk to you for a couple seconds. I get this creep. I'm hoping he leaves. Cop gets it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the
yeah,
cop will
they'll
talk-
keep an eye out for them. Most cops will,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and they'll keep an eye out for you, and they'll after the fact, but they'll sit there and they get it, and they know that it's not necessarily that they can make an arrest, or they can even talk to the guy or the woman or whatever it is, whatever the issue is. But they'll at least stand there with you, and they'll act as a deterrent.
Yeah, a lot of times a police presence is a deterrent with most normal people, but a lot of irrational people, intoxicated people, people high on drugs, or just pure criminals.
Yep.
They don't care for cops there. Very rarely do they care.
Well, I got to tell you that if that's the case, it's never happened to me that there's been an issue afterwards with a cop there. If it is, I'd rather if there's going to be an issue, the cop.
At least someone has a gun.
The cop is exactly. Anyway, so don't be a victim. How did you get interested in this? I mean, obviously you're a cop, so you've got to be interested. But why zero in on this?
When I was a rookie, over 30 years ago, I was in the community policing unit, and part of the responsibility, we would go to the elementary schools, 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, and there was a program out there called Kid Care ID. And this was in the 90s, and the basic premise of the program was cops go to schools, however many kids want to come in, we'll take their picture, we'll get their name, their address, their date of birth, their parents' phone number, personal information, and in the event that child gets kidnapped, then at least the parents have a photo ready to give to the cops. To me, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because you're telling a kid, why are you here, officer? Well, in case you ever get abducted there, Jimmy, here's a picture. That program had nothing to do with actually teaching kids how to be safe. So I did that program a couple of times, and I said, I'm not doing that program until we come up with a child safety program. So that's where Street Smarts came in. So we have a Street Smarts program, or I have a Street Smarts program for kids, for adults, for college girls, for elderly people, online computer type stuff, everything like that. So after I did that program, I was like, no way. You have to teach people the mental aspect of personal safety, like the mindset and how would you react in certain situations. And guess what, Dave? That's what we're going to do today. We're actually going to start out with mindset, what your mindset should be. Yeah, and the bottom line with that, and we talked about this earlier, criminals always look for the most vulnerable person or situation, whether it's a young child walking home alone, an intoxicated female, an open door to your house. I know you don't keep your doors open, do you, Dave?
I lock my doors almost always.
And criminals, they're very good at spotting. They're good at spotting the intoxicated female. There was an issue in Boston a few years ago. It was a young girl from Lynn. She was out drinking with some friends, and she broke from her group. She was intoxicated.
Always a mistake.
And she ran into a kid. He kidnapped her, and he subsequently killed her. That's a rare... I'm going with rare occurrences.
I'm going to give you another one. I went to a few years ago. I'm going to the Boston Comedy Festival. A friend of mine, a reporter, said, "Hey, I'm not doing anything. That might be kind of fun. Can I come along?" I go, "Yeah, come on." So I bring him to the show, and then afterwards we go to the after party, and he wandered away. Now, why he wandered away, I have no idea why he did. Was he trying to find a little food? Was he trying to find whatever, was he
nice young lady?
He might have been. I don't know. I didn't know him that well, so I have no idea why he would.
Haven't heard from him yet, have you?
No, I did. He came back. He got mugged.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They can, people from the street, whether they're going to sexually assault you or they're just going to rip you off or they're going to break into your house. People who live and grow up on the street and they run their business on the street. That's how they make a living. They can spot vulnerable person. Very easy. Very, very easy to do.
By the way, you were talking about this program with the kids. I remember this. My daughter's 16, so roughly 15 years ago.
Yeah.
She's a baby. And there was something going on at the United Shoe in Beverly, which is where I live. And I brought her to this place, and they were taking DNA. They were taking kids' DNA.
Oh, yeah.
And I think they froze it, and then you could bring it home and put it in your freezer. Does that sound right?
Well, I mean...
the same thing.
I guess it does. It doesn't sound right. I guess it does. If that's 15 years ago, things are different now. A lot of times they'll swab you.
I'm just wondering if it was you.
Oh, it wasn't me.
Okay, because they swabbed. That's what they did. They swabbed her. They didn't cut her.
Yeah, she's 1 year old. They cut her up.
But she might have been two. But she...
Without some sort of prevention along with taking your photo or taking your DNA. How much do you terrify a kid?
Right.
That kid's going to be terrified his whole life.
It's funny, too,
or her life.
Because, you're telling the kids this now. The generation before mine, you told kids to hide under their desks for the A-bomb was coming, or the H-bomb. I don't know which one it was they were afraid of that generation. But I think scaring kids is probably something that's gone, through the ages.
Absolutely.
Through the ages. And I think because it's the simplest way to say.
Now there's the big scare tactic is all the ice caps are going to melt. Everything's going to melt. We're going to have no energy. Yeah, the big political. Yeah, we're not even going to get into that garbage.
We're not going to get into your Alex Jones.
Let's keep on going with mindset.
Yeah, let's go to this.
All right.
So being intoxicated is a terrible thing. Time of day is...
Yeah, I mean, like I said, your daughter's 15 years old.
16.
16.
So
she can walk down a main street at 8 a.m. with her friends going to school, no problem. But that same main street with a couple of her friends at 11 o'clock at night, the environment has changed.
Yeah.
Different predators are out at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night.
I got to tell you, she's in the musical at school.
Yep.
And they keep changing the times for the rehearsals. And so I'm trying to pick her up as often as I can. But there are a couple times she might be walking home.
You gotta toughen her up.
And it's all of a sudden it's dark now. It's dark now at early, and between the snow and everything else, I'm a little worried.
Absolutely.
She was not a free range kid. You know what I mean? She was
absolutely,
She was a kid who was protected or has been protected since she was born. But yeah, even walking once it gets dark, I get nervous because you get nervous for safety reasons. Like people, I used to be worried about people not paying attention or going too fast, and I still am. But now you get people on their phones. And so you've got all the safety concerns, but we're talking about bad guys. And so at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, it's less of an issue at night.
Absolutely.
Than 11 o'clock when people have been drinking and people have turned into werewolves.
But now let's just say the young lady someone gives her a hard time.
Yes.
All right. Now your will to survive, because if it comes down to you have to defend yourself, your will to survive has to be a lot stronger than the bad guy's will to either assault you, sexually assault you, abduct you, whatever the case may be.
But what if they're stronger?
Well, a lot of they're stronger, meaner. But that goes into, obviously, you can have like a mental safety program, doing mindset and going through scenarios, but obviously you have to have some sort of you have to have some physical training. It's like a little dog. My dog is 30 pounds. My dog can take me to the ground easily. My dog can kick my ass. It all depends how much fight a person has in them.
Are you going to say that it's not the size of the dog?
Well, a 15-year-old girl against a full-grown man, that's a tough task. But however, you must have a survival instinct.
Here's one of the things that I think movies have done a disservice to humanity over the last 30 years. It seems so easy to simply kick a man in the nuts now. Like you would think, I look and it's like, oh, look at the women and the girls and the little kids who just kick the bad guy in the nuts.
Yeah, I mean, if you got one kick in you got to be 100% accurate. So that's
I think you got to practice.
Yeah. You got to practice all the time.
If I invite people over and I tell my daughter, I say, when Uncle Jim comes in to visit, make sure you greet him by kicking him in the nuts.
There you go.
All right. So
now there's a couple more things here. You got to ask yourself ultimately, if you're walking out of a gig, Dave, and someone says, "Hey, give me your money," and you size the person up, you're like, I might be able to take them, and you lose. Just give him your money. Right. There's no material object, no amount of money, I would think, that is worth getting severely injured, getting your ass kicked. Worst case scenario, getting killed over it.
I would say 50 and up.
50 and up?
50 and up is worth my life. If it's 50, 49, no, 49 and 50.
$50,
50 and up, 50 and less, I'd give it 51 and up. But this is really good advice. I think we remember, both of us, the case of New York City, of the Emerson College graduate, a young woman just starting her career. She's out with her friends, and out comes somebody to hold them up, and she says no, because she called his
bluff,
and the guy shot her.
Absolutely.
And killed her. And they actually made a law and order out of it. It was a pretty high-profile case when it was around. So it might
never, ever call the bluff of a street criminal. Just give them whatever they ask for. Now, if it goes into a sexual assault scenario, it's completely different.
Right.
When it's material items, just give them everything you got. Go from there. It's not worth anything.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
I go out. I'm a suburban guy. I take my money out of my wallet, I put it in my